I know a lot of times as leaders, we are put on this pedestal, like we got all the answers, we know what we're doing, we have people who look up to us, but sometimes on the other side, it may feel very lonely. What I have learned to do is to be honest about how it is I feel and what it is I'm experiencing to the people who I am in community with. You can't pour from an empty cup. I done tried, and it is not helpful at all.
Welcome to Lunch with Leaders, the podcast where we explore what it takes to lead, thrive, and create lasting impact. I'm Adeseleju Dogalanya, a TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, and the founder of African Women in STEM. Each episode features insightful conversations with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders from around the world who are transforming cultures, redefining leadership, and shaping the future of work. Together, we'll share the stories, strategies, and mindsets that will empower women in STEM to amplify their visibility, influence, and impact. So if you're ready to lead boldly, amplify your voice, and help influence what leadership looks like for women in STEM, hit follow, share this podcast, and join us every week for impactful conversations, powerful stories, and practical strategies. Happy Black History Month! Our guest today is Tamiko Nettles, and I'm going to go ahead and read her bio so you know how awesome she is, okay? So for 20 years, Tamiko has been a powerful advocate and voice for people that are often overlooked: leaders, educators, students of color, individuals experiencing homelessness, and mission-driven professionals who work tirelessly behind the scenes. Her work is across education, not-for-profit, human services sectors, but she's centered on one core belief: when people feel seen, valued, and empowered, greatness follows. As a former educator, author, coach, program leader, motivational speaker, and advisor to organizational leaders, Tamiko has led initiatives that consistently boost morale, improve communications, strengthen leadership pipelines, and build and connect resilient teams. We need that. So now, as a founder and CEO of Let Go, Be Great, she brings the same passion and proven people-centered strategy. Oh, I'm going to say it again. The founder of and CEO of Let Go Be Great, she brings the same passion and proven people-centered strategy to mission-driven leaders, to teams and organizations, ensuring that those who lead and serve are equipped, inspired, and supported to do their best work on purpose. Tamiko holds degrees in psychology and sociology from Oxford College and Emory University, and a master's in education and social policy from Northwestern University and School of Leadership from American College of Education. Oh my goodness, this is an incredible bio.
Oh.
Welcome to the show, Tamiko. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Desi, for having me. I am so honored to be on this podcast with another brilliant Black woman in front of me. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And this is Black History Month, so we're celebrating Black excellence, and this is like giving me all the goods.
Yes.
So we're going to get into the questions. I have a lot of questions for you today, and you're going to answer them all.
Oh my gosh.
This is exciting. You spent over 2 decades advocating for people that are often overlooked, and we know what that is. Leaders, educators, and undeserved students. So what led you to start this advocacy work and to keep doing it?
Thank you so much for that question, Adesi, and hopefully you can still hear me. What led me to this work? I feel like I lead with a lot of things. One of them is definitely empathy. There are things that I see and I really connect with people around those things and try to find solutions, try to find resources, try to find answers. And that has really led me into this work. I do a lot of listening more than I do speaking. And I do a lot of observing more than I do talking and telling different things. And I can notice when there is something happening with someone that they're probably not saying, and try to find out what are the things that are happening and whether or not there are any solutions. I know for me, in the spaces I've been in, I have seen people overlooked for positions that they are more than qualified for. I've seen individuals be in spaces where they are afraid to share what they need because they fear that they will be ousted or fired. I've been in spaces where there are students who are just coming to school, doing the work, but never feeling connected to how they can put that work in process or what they can do after they get out of school or when they become whoever it is that they are thinking that they want to be. I've seen so many instances of things like that. And one of the things I remember, I always seek first to understand, but then also try to make sure that I hear why those things are and figure out ways in which those things cannot be there anymore. In the education space, we're like mandated reporters. If there's something wrong, you're supposed to say something about it. Even in this entrepreneurial space, I am that too for the clients and those that I serve. If there is something that is happening within an organization, if there is something that is occurring within a person where they can't be their full selves, where they can't do the work because they're overwhelmed, there's so much drainage or whatever else, I am that mandated reporter for that person, for that team, for that individual to ensure that what is going on there does not happen and it does not prevent their gift from being something that is halted or stops as well. So hopefully that answers the question, but that's why I got into it. I want people to stay in the jobs that they have. I want them to be happy about what they are doing and how they're doing it. I don't want them to feel that they are on tiptoes or that they are just there to just show up. Like we all have purpose. And when we lose that purpose, that's a whole nother thing. I don't want a future student, a future team player, a future leader to ever have to second guess why they're in the space that they're in.
Yeah, thank you for going into details with that. And there's one thing you said that I love, which is that you listen more than you speak and you observe more. That's one thing that we don't do very well for a lot of reasons. But when you listen more, especially when you talk with people that work in communities or with certain individuals, you gain more when you listen. Because
Yes,
when you
yes.
listen, even in business, they tell you talk to your customers, hear what they have to say. Because when you listen, then you can give them exactly what they need. So if you take nothing else from this, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you listen more than you speak or if you observe more, you will definitely be able to do more in your work, in your business, and serve people in a way that actually will produce the results that you want. Even though in the workplace we're not told that.
And I want to take it just even a step further. I think when I was in the educational space and I worked with one department, one of the things they talked about a lot was like voice of the customer, which reminds me of exactly what you're saying. One of the things I know I'm being more intentional about, because sometimes we can listen all day to what somebody is saying, what they're experiencing, what somebody does not like, and they may be telling you that to help you, your company, your team. But I want to take it to another step of we don't just listen, we listen and then we respond. Like there has to be something that happens after that listening, something that you do to affirm what it was that person said, but also like if you can't do anything with what they give you, to say that to them. I thank you so much for sharing this particular piece with me. I know that's not in my locus of control, but I will make sure that I take this to someone else, right? Or I'll make sure if with your permission, can I bring this up at our next staff meeting? There has to be some implementation after that, because if not, it can go in one ear and out the other, and that person could still be sitting with something they just trusted to give you, as a result. So just want to say that too. Like we're listen and then do.
Yes. So your work is deeply people centered and rooted in the belief that when people feel seen and valued, they will become great. You work a lot with organizations and leaders. Can you help us understand how you do this work with them, especially when the systems don't prioritize empathy or emotional intelligence?
Thank you for that question. I feel like what we talked about in that last question is definitely helpful here. The first thing I do within any of our first meeting points, whenever a leader comes to me, I always have to listen to what they are addressing or experiencing in their spaces. A lot of times, especially with leaders and also those who are on teams of leaders, is sometimes as a leader, it could be hard for you to admit that something is happening in the space that you lead. And it could be hard for other people, if you told them, to think that you may have difficulty with that. Because I know a lot of times as leaders, we are put on this pedestal, like we got all the answers, we know what we're doing, we have people who look up to us, but sometimes on the other side, it may feel very lonely. You have to put in this idea that every single thing is okay. For me, in the space that is created, especially when we're trying to plan out what is happening, is how can I ensure that leader to leader, this is a safe space, that I'm going to take whatever it is they're telling me. I'm not going to add on to that. I'm going to listen to what they have and not judge the person or the task they are up against. I think that's the first step. The second thing is usually the things that organizations prioritize are not what people call soft skills. What people are usually prioritizing is you have this task for your team. You all need to use these tools to get them. We need to see that your team is being productive and doing what you all said, and you got to get the work done. None of that involves connection to the product that you are putting out with the people who are putting out the product. None of that involves it. It's just like, here's your task, get it done. I can care less how you feel. I can care less what it is that you have gone through before you got there. I can care less what happened to you at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, the end of the day. Your goal is to get this done, right? And I understand that. I get it. As an educator, we had to come in, teach our students, do those objectives, make sure our students met those objectives. But sometimes in meeting the objectives, there were other things that happened that prevented or either enhanced the objective for getting done. And those things require you to pause. Those things require you to look at that person or look at that circumstance and say, I need to differentiate my approach right now because it's not going to work in the way that we said. And so for me, in terms of what you just shared, I know I have to make sure that there is this human connection that happens, because I can come in with my agenda to fix whatever it is that you are bringing to me about how you want your teams to cross some of the barriers that you all are experiencing. But if I don't get to know you, who your people are, I can come in with my own ideas and totally miss the mark. And I want the clients and I want the individuals they serve to feel that this person who is leading me has some sort of authenticity. It's not about trying to get the work done. There has to be a connection. One thing I know that's a part of the social emotional learning curriculum, I never knew I was going to be doing social emotional learning type work. I had no idea that this is also going to be a part of the work that I do. There has to be some sort of relational trust. There has to be some sort of psychological safety that this leader has to have with the people who are closest to the work, so they feel this person has their best interest. They can be honest, they can be true, and it does involve seeing somebody other than the title they hold, right? It requires hard work that needs to be done and implemented. Empathy is not a skill that could be easily taught. Like, it's not. Like, you could teach somebody to do these particular steps to make this thing happen. But having an empathetic heart is not easy for everybody. And with my company, There are two ways I go about it, Desi. I've written all of these short stories, right? And people are like, why do you have a short story? Like, why are you using something that looks like a children's book to aid companies and organizations? I do it because in every single one of those short stories, doesn't matter who the character is, they are experiencing a lot of things that are happening within our schools, that are happening within our organizations. And sometimes through those short stories, like as we read them, depending on what phase companies are in as they go through my framework, they can see through a character how that character is experiencing things. But then they also are able to identify these are things that's happening with them, and what are the things that could be happening here within our team? Or what are those things that could be happening within my locus of control as that leader? And so with that, they experience empathy in another sense of looking through somebody who may be fictitious, so that they can start thinking about like, okay, how is this that I imposed in here? What am I doing like this main character or different from that main character? And that's something also with how to put in this empathy based approach, where sometimes we can't say it about ourselves or what it is we're feeling, but we can probably point it out in somebody else, right? So that's another way to actually prioritize it, by something that may be fictitious or also may be real as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's. I think you kind of blew a lot of people's bubbles when you say that empathy cannot be taught. Because we really want that to be thought. And again, as you're talking, I just remembered, went back to the pandemic that forced organizations to realize they work with people, because usually you show up at work and they don't care. But then it's been a couple of years and we're moving away from that again. So when you said empathic, and that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind, because when it was present, people didn't know what else to do but to deal with it. And now it's far removed because it cannot be taught. And most of these organizations or the leaders in them never give themselves a chance to begin to do whatever it takes to help them have more empathy and higher emotional EQ. We're getting back to how the workplace used to be, a couple of years ago, that got us to where we are today. But thank you so much for sharing that. And the whole idea of using a children's book, because again, I feel like in life's purest forms, I think children are people to observe, because they don't have a lot of the things that we've learned over the years that force us to suppress who we really are. There's a lot of honesty and authenticity, with kids and the way they express themselves. So yes, I read children's books, okay, because there's just something about, it's just pure. I don't know how to explain it. That is, in my mind, I think that's genius. What you're doing is genius. I don't know if the people you're working with realize that, but it's incredible. And we're going to talk more about that after this. One of the things that you really care about is leading when you don't feel like leading. You already touched on it when you talk about the fact that most leaders have a lot of weight that they're carrying and nobody really knows. So if you're leading when it feels like a lot, but you're still meant to show up for the people that you're leading, inspire them, help them, influence them to do things, help them get through tough times, help them make decisions. So how do you still lead and stay present without pretending that everything is okay? Because that's what leads to burnout, stress, and everything else that happens. And you may end up not even doing things right because you're trying to pull up. So when you don't feel like leading, when it's tough, how do you get not really past that, but how do you still lead but still take care of yourself so you can be better in those circumstances?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if we talked about this before, maybe we talked about it pre this pre this recording. I don't know. My time is getting all over. One of the things I know that I had to learn was how to be vulnerable enough to share what I was experiencing with others. I am somebody who gives over and above with every single thing that I do. If somebody is not able to do what it is that I'm expecting, I'm like, I'll just do it. I'll make sure it gets done. Or I'm going to find someone to aid with how to do this. You don't have to worry about it. It's okay. Or I will just do it all, right? one of the things that I've noticed is when I do things like that, I am usually the one that's more exhausted, even though it has aided somebody else in not doing the work. Or I'm the one that's like, okay, I got to get up. I got to get all of this stuff done. I got to do it like this Energizer bunny. And then I am depleted at the end. What I have learned to do is to be honest about how it is I feel and what it is I'm experiencing to the people who I am in community with, whether that's at work, whether that's even in my own home, whether that is with even the individuals who I'm serving. And what I realize is that the more honest I am about, you know what, I just got to take a moment. I just need us all to take 5 minutes before we start this meeting and have some quiet time. Let's listen to this song. Nobody says anything because I just need some time to get myself together. Me saying that gives permission for other people to do that same thing outside of the space or within that space. But it has to be me starting that particular thing for others to see that it's okay. And for them to stand up when they're feeling that same way, for me to receive that and not try to do what I want to do even after they said that. So I think first being vulnerable enough to share, like, I need a moment, or vulnerable enough to share, like, I am just overwhelmed right now, or vulnerable enough to share, I am exhausted, y'all. And I know as your leader, you have not heard me say that. I know I have expected you all to come in here and do all of the things and just keep going. But I want you all to be so honest with me when you ever feel like this. Because if we feel like this, that's something that we need to know because we should not be drained. So who can take some of this stuff off of me if need be? Or can we all just have a moment? And whenever you need that, maybe you pick up your moment card and I just say yes and not give you any questions about when you need to take that break. So I think it is being okay to be vulnerable enough to share when you just need that. Or taking a day, taking 2 days if you need that time to refresh. Because I think like what I just saw in front of my head was the book Rest is Resistance. Like, think about that book. We have to take the time to rest and to be still, because if we don't, we are putting ourselves in a place that we have been granted to lead or to serve in. And if we're not well, if we can't do the things, if we're gone, everything else is going to continue, right? So it's like, why not just take the time where you are to just be honest, to be truthful, to say, this is what I'm doing, because it will give those around you permission to do the exact same thing. And that's what we want. We want people to be comfortable enough to share. I just need a moment right now, such and such. I just need to take this day. And when they tell it to us, don't be stank about the attitude. If they say that, it's a reason why. Sometimes people don't have to tell us even the reason why. We should have a whole open door where people can share what they need and it be received, because you know they're going to get the work done. If they're not going to get the work done, that's a whole nother story, right? That's more of like some coaching or remediation that needs to happen on the other side. But we're going to work in good faith that when people say that they are having that, then it's our job to make sure that we don't judge them, that we accept what they're saying, and we're going to make sure we're supportive enough so they have that time so they can keep going, just like we want for ourselves too.
Vulnerability is a strength. I was in corporate for 2 decades. It's like vulnerability is not a strength. And I understand because I'm a woman in STEM, probably the only one in most cases, and they will trample you. But in reality, vulnerability is a strength. I remember as you were speaking, I thought about a podcast episode that I heard the co-founder of Netflix. He was saying something about, at some point, he basically, I think it was on Tuesdays or whatever day of the week, he always, once it's 5 o'clock, he's gone because he has a date with his wife. And he said that he's seen a lot of founders who have had their marriages destroyed because they work all the time and they don't make time for the people in their lives. He didn't want that to happen to him. That's being vulnerable right there.
Yes.
And then it sets an example for the people you're leading, you know? And then also the other point I wanted to bring up is this whole concept of you can give more from a full cup than you can from an empty one. But in our cultures, I don't care where you're from, for some reason, there's this sacrifice, or you always have to sacrifice yourself. If you're trying to fill your cup so you can give from the overflow, you're almost made to feel like that's a selfish thing to do. You should give now,
Mhm.
give the shirt off your back. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. Again, if my cup is overflowing, more people will get. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with taking time to rest and refresh so you can give more. So if you take nothing away from this, vulnerability is a strength, and just make sure that you're giving from your overflow versus from when you're drained. Because to your point, I don't think people realize that. But whether you're running a business or you're a professional, you are your greatest asset. And if you're not there to do the job, that's it. And if you somehow are not in the picture anymore,
Hmm.
they'll figure out a way to continue without you. That's something to think about.
I remember a couple of years ago doing something for a school district around self care isn't selfish, right? And how you have to set those boundaries and be open open enough to be mindful of your own well-being and your own ability to continue doing this work by taking those moments to take care of you, and you should not feel bad for it. So I'm glad you affirmed that here. I don't think it's a Debbie Downer. I think it is like, this is reality we got to face whether we want it or not. Like, we have to have some boundaries out here. We have to set those things. We have to be intentional about how we spend our time, who we spend our time in, and what we spend the time on. And it's okay to do that. The more we start doing it, the more people are going to see it as something they should do, regardless of how other people feel. Because you cannot do exactly what you say. You can't pour from an empty cup. I done tried, and it is not helpful at all. You would not see a lot of smiles from Tamiko, and I think my teens could tell that. We need to make sure mommy has her stuff together, right? And same thing, I'm sure, with you and those in which you work with as well. So thank you.
This is a very important conversation, and I think we should spend more time on this. But another time, let's talk about one of the things that is really dear to me. I work a lot with women in STEM, and you talk a lot about getting out of your own way. And this is a challenge that many high achieving women face. We can't get out of our own way. I know you talked about how what you used to do was when somebody did something, you jump in, take care of it, and then you drink. So, what is it that makes people, what are the stories that we tell ourselves that makes high achieving women, high achieving women in STEM, not incapable, but almost like we deprioritize making things easy for us and just kind of get in our own way. And how can we get out of that so that we can actually achieve more?
Hmm. Oh, Desi, you are just coming with the questions. Yes, I love it. Keep them coming. So I do think there's an art and a science for women in STEM. There are so many gifts and talents we all have, right? There are some things that we have been given in the giftings that we've had, whether it is, in science and technology and engineering and math. And sometimes those things to others may be very confusing. Like, they don't even know why you spending the time in it, like what you're doing, how you're doing it, but you make it look effortless. You make it look like it's something that is so natural, and something that somebody may discover as hard, you make it very easy. That's a gift, because not everybody has that skill to do it effectively. There are people who are able to do it, but there are people who can't do it in the way that it could be done through this woman who has this task. It may be hard to lend what it is that you do so well to somebody else who's probably been watching you and has never done it before. There's always going to be somebody in our periphery who has seen how we lead, seen how we teach these things we are so gifted at, and is vying to show us how they can do it by taking all that they have learned from us, right? Like, from this woman that is in STEM. And the first way to get out of your own way is to realize, I do have a gift. I do have a talent. It is amazing. I could do it with my eyes closed. But I also need to be willing and open to give somebody else the opportunity to shine in it, knowing that they already have the remnants of what it is we've been doing all along. And so I think the delegation piece is essential, and getting out of your own way. Again, for somebody who before was like, let me do all the things because I know if I do it, it's going to be right. But if it is, you are, and I guess this goes back to my education mindset, right? I think about something we used to coach other teachers in, or even coach our students in, was like this I do, we do, you do model. And like I do is like, I am teaching you how to do things. I'm modeling it. I'm showing it. The we do is our guided practice where we're doing it together. And then the you do is when you do it on your own. You do it without me. I'm just watching. Our job is to teach people how to do what we do effectively. All African women in STEM, all people doing the work, that is our job as leaders, to teach people how to do it. But the other part is we also got to be able to break down the systems that we know so well so that others can repeat it. And so it's going to take some time to really unpack all the things I have up in my brain. Desi has to break that thing that's down from her brain so that she can give it over to somebody else to also replicate it, right? And so the delegation piece is going to involve more teaching. But this is more teaching that is going to be purposeful because you want the people who are getting you to be able to, to reflect what it is you're doing. The delegation piece, and for them to do it on their own, like, that's a godsend, right? For the organization. It's a godsend to relieve some things off of you, knowing that the people in front of you are going to be able to do it once you release it to them, and that you trust that they're going to do what is needed. And if they're not, you're going to coach them to do what is needed so you can get there. The first step is definitely the delegation piece. The second step is trusting whoever you have around you in your cabinet is able to carry out the work, and trusting that whoever you hired to do the work is going to do their best because they have signed up to be a part of your team. They've signed up to be a part of your company. They have signed up to carry out your mission. And as you move out of the way, it's something that should happen in your heart to make it flutter even more, knowing that there's purpose in me taking a step back and knowing all the things that I so graciously give is going to be met with people who can do it. An organization or your team ends up thriving even more because you only have your hand in it when it's desperately needed. Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh yeah, this is great. Like
Okay.
when you say delegation, yes, and then trust.
Yes.
So I mean, again, Tamiko, we can talk forever.
I cannot wait.
This is amazing.
Yeah, that's my favorite workshop to do. It's my favorite workshop to do.
So again, just kind of leading from this, sometimes the reason why women do this is because of how success is defined. We want to succeed and we want to do whatever it takes to succeed. Unfortunately, success for most times is very external, and it forces us to go out of our way, for example, to not delegate or to not trust people enough to believe that they can do the things, and it will still look good in the process. So my question is, how do we invite these women in STEM to redefine success for themselves in a way that honors their well-being and helps them build a legacy, which is how people remember you once all of this is done?
Thank you for that question. I think the first thing, and I was just saying this in another call I had before here, is as a leader and even as an individual, someone without a title, you are who you are. I think the biggest thing is to write down what you expect. Write down what it is that you want, what it is that you see yourself as, who it is you see yourself around. What are the things that you are going to accept? What are you not? What are the things that you are going to do? What are the things that, you are going to try to achieve? Like having some sort of free write into what success will look like for you before you involve anybody else in that conversation will be important. And the reason why I'm saying before you involve anyone else in the conversation is because I remember as a child, I had all of these ideas of things that I wanted to do. I remember, going out and be like, my dad would have, he had a little farm little space, in the back. And I'm like, oh my God, we're cultivating this. Maybe I'll be a farmer. Maybe I'll do some cashiering. I wanted to be a cashier. I want to sing. I had a little cassette tape in the back, and I would always sing on that cassette tape and put do all of these stories and record them on this little cassette tape. And I was like, well, maybe I'll be a journalist. I started telling that to people. And they started being like, well, no, Tamiko, that don't really look like you if you're out here farming. You're going to do it. The people's talk gets into the things that you see for yourself. The things that you smiled about and was so happy about before you entered a conversation with someone else. Sometimes those conversations are amazing. There'll be somebody that's like, girl, yeah, go ahead and farm. Be the best cashier ever. And sing and do all of that stuff. The conversations could be either way. But the biggest thing for someone who is starting out or is in is for you to define what that looks like for you. If you're uncomfortable with sharing things with other people, that's your business. I can't tell you how to do you other than you telling you how to do you. And I think the first thing would be to own that. To write down, here is what I want as I take this role. Here is what I want this impact to look like. Dream big. Here are the things that I'm going to do when things get difficult. Here are the things I know how to do when that comes to that particular space. I know I'm not comfortable with opening it up. So maybe I need to take some sort of course that is aiding me in doing that. Maybe I do something that's going to challenge this particular thinking. Doing all of that before you interact and before you get into whatever conversation will ground you even more in terms of what you want. That's powerful. Looking back, not on the goals that you had, but the desires that you want to fulfill, or the things you want to do for other people. Those things are going to stand out more the more and more you keep looking at it, and then it becomes that reality. Sometimes, to just be still and what it is you want, what it is you expect, what is going to tick you off, because that's helpful too. That's powerful, right? Have a guide for working with you as a person. If you have that, that helps everybody else know and build into what that success looks like for you becoming who it is you call to be and who it is they call to be in those particular spaces as well.
This is important because I always talk about success. What does success mean to you? And a lot of people are like, I don't even know what does success really mean. And what I hear when they say what does success really mean is they haven't taken the time to be self-aware and figure out what success means for them. They're still kind of in that phase and they don't know what it is that they want. So for you, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my God.
You do a lot.
I do.
And this is a human being. And I just want to know, what do you want your legacy to be?
Girl, I'm trying to hold back tears, Desi. I think about that so much. And I think about something. I have an image of something I know one of my children gave to me when they were in 4th grade, right? They're teens now. But it says on there, Tamiko will change the world. And even God knows that. When my daughter gave this to me, I was like, what in the world? And thinking about, for youth, sometimes they see so much in the parent, in the person, right? Sometimes we know her, but it's like, oh my God, I see that. I think for me, what I really want, especially in my for-profit business, is for people to not lose sight of why they started the work. People to not lose sight of the gift they have for just showing up. I know the work is hard. I want people to be more empathetic, to start to learn more about the people who they're working with. Because what I find is sometimes when we get up into the CEO and the leader, sometimes we get farther away from the people who are in front of the people. Our educators who are closest to our students see so much. They experience so much, right? That someone who may be in a district office may never know about. These people who are closest to the work are so in it that I want to make sure that they don't lose their thing, because our students need them, right? The people who they serve needs them. And if it is, these individuals can become more advocates for what their students are saying they need, if they can be more advocates for what their colleagues or themselves need, because a lot of them are struggling with getting so many things on their plates. It looks funny that they're like, I can't be this super person. You want it right now because although I am teaching, I'm having to be the nurse, I'm having to be the parent, I'm having to differentiate. It's a lot of stuff that's there. And if we can have spaces where people are okay to say when they're not okay, if we can have spaces where people, an appreciation or recognition moment is not just a pat on the back. It is like, here, I'm going to tell you specifically what you did to move the needle. I'm going to be in your face to find out how can I make this experience better for you so that you can be better for those that you serve. That's the type of culture I want our organizations to have. That's the type of leaders I want us to build. There's another part of me that does a lot for those in need, for those experiencing homelessness. I think about how I got into that. At parts of my life, I have been in food lines. People could look at me in a suit at this pantry. Like, what's going on? The people there never ask a question, which I appreciate, right? Having spaces where people are like, you know what? You're here for this particular need. I'm not going to ask you why. I'm going to accept you and bring you in. I'm going to make sure that the resources that we provide are going to do what it needs to do for you. And I'm not going to ask any questions about it. I'm just going to make sure you have it. I want to be a conduit of making sure that if there's a need in my locus of control, I do everything in my power to meet it. And if I can't, I want to make sure I find somebody who can. Whatever it is somebody is feeling in their heart, whatever it is that somebody is needing, an answer is always there. You know, but the first step for anybody, like, and I think everyone will say this about me, it's like when people say that there's something they're looking for, I know I'm going to listen. Like, they're going to come into that space, maybe feeling a certain kind of way and then leave feeling empowered. That's a gift, right? But I want people to realize that there is no lack. All we have to do is make sure that we are present and open in the spaces. And if the world could look at a person not as who they see on the outside, but from the inside of them trying to get to whatever it is or achieving and being able to be that friend or that support, that's amazing. Hopefully that answers it.
Well, you're doing that
Okay.
already. I mean, I know. I'm gonna tell you now. So we met the way we met, a couple of years ago, by being
Yes.
on the same event. But you've been such an incredible person. You started this message chat on LinkedIn and threw everybody's stamp on there. It's been amazing. That's how I got into Grace Hopper and all the wonderful things you're doing. I've also been supporting my community. I have two people from there that I'm gonna be having conversations with really soon. So you are doing the work and it's coming to fruition. And when you're bringing people together like this, somebody said, "Oh, that scholarship, that grant you shared, I did apply, and I hope they get it." So you're already making it happen. I just want to tell you now that you're an amazing human being, and I'm so glad you're in my life. And everybody that's listening right now, for the woman that is listening and knows that she's capable of more, but feels stuck, maybe because of fear, or she just feels like she has too much responsibility, or like she can't deal with the expectation, because as women there's sometimes all these expectations that are piled on us. What would you want her to think about or remember about the right that she has to lead exactly as she is and as she wants?
Hmm. Ooh, Desi. Ooh, yes. I think one thing I think about, and it was so pivotal to me when I was trying to make first moves and even starting my company and even starting the grassroots initiative with those experiencing homelessness. What I had to think of was the task that I am called to do. It would be very easy if I had the skills to do the thing. A lot of the times, I didn't know I had those things in me to do the things that I did. For any woman who is listening, you may have to lead from a space where you're unaware of the impact you will make. But there is something inside of you urging you to move forward, even when you don't have the blueprint of how that's going to look. The gift you have inside of you, rooted by a community of people who are watching you or supporting you, is going to impact so many people if you just let go. If you just stand up and say, you know what? I know I have this gift. I know I have this talent. I don't know how it's going to be executed, but I know that if I don't lead in the way that is pulling my heart to lead it, there are so many people who you're connected to that's not going to get that benefit. And so I want you to be confident in knowing you are going to do a great work as long as you take that first step to say, I agree with what this thing is that is an urge on my life, an urge to my community. And even if I don't know the answers and how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to sustain it, I got to start moving in the power that I have because my heart is still beating to do it. If that means my first step is going to be, let me be a part of this African and women in STEM community, right? If that means my first step is I'm going to look at somebody who has been my guidepost throughout my life and talk to them and find out from them, what did they do when they doubted? What did they do when they couldn't think of how they were going to make their next moves? What would they do when they got so much opposition? Just so that you can start to be around people who will be honest to you about their process and honest to you about this work is not easy, but you're destined for it. Don't discount the small moments or the small reminders from people in your community, from you even writing down what your purpose will be in this work. Keep looking at it. If you journal, keep looking at those things when you had your highs, for when you get in your lows, you're going to go back to them. Keep looking and keep focused in on, there's something I'm called here to do, and it won't get done unless I step into it. Because you are called to do it, your answers and stepping into it are slowly going to be formed the more you move and you're confident in that. And if you're not confident in it, get grounded. Get back around women like Adesi, right? Get back around your village to remind you that there's something great within you and that nobody can change that. And that you are going to be your best gift, to this world and to your community as a result of you stepping into it, even if you're unsure.
Yeah, and thank you so much for saying this. There's nothing like the power of community. I belong to a lot of communities for different reasons. Some are in season, some are out of season, but always, I'm never trying to do this on my own.
Yes.
And everything you said is so true and is very, very important that we are in community with other people that will not just support us, but that we can leverage
Mm-hmm.
the things that we want. And African American STEM community is one of those.
Yes, you should.
But
You better do it. Yes.
come see us. We have a lot going on, and you will be the better for it. But I'm glad you brought that up because there's nothing that will hold you back decades, even, than trying to be self-sufficient or work in isolation or not having the right people around you so that when you talk about those things, they can actually help you move forward versus, drag you back.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, Tamiko. This
So
has been
welcome.
awesome, incredible, enlightening, insightful, all the things, all the goods. And please tell us, what are you working on right now and where can people find you and partner with you?
Oh my God. So I'm working on a whole bunch of things. I really want to get out my book academy. I really want our youth to start writing stories on how they're going to change the narrative in the spaces they're in. And I know that's one thing that's there. I also am working on like this makings of a great team series. And I love it because it hits on a lot of things we talked about today, which is the vulnerability moment and like building that empathetic heart and also like reconfiguring what are those strengths and what are those drainers in our spaces of work. And also, what are the things that are holding us back? That is something I'm desperately working on. And then also, like working on something around this grassroots initiative. I see it as bigger than what it is. I'm so excited about what this will look like and the partners that we will have and what it will do, especially in this hygiene and security period across Illinois and beyond. So I'm excited about that work as well. That will be coming out hopefully sooner rather than later. So it'll be amazing. You can find me everywhere at Let Go Be Great on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm also at Tamiko Nettles on LinkedIn. My website is www.letgo-begreat.com. All of the books and journals and resources that I created for teams, that's also on our Be Great products page. So whatever way I can be of support to this community, whatever way I can be of support to people who are even not in this community, the more I do what I am called to do rather than what I thought to do. I feel like that's where I am. I look forward to hearing more about the work that you all are doing here at African Women in STEM.
Thank you so
You're
much. And we're going to
welcome.
put all that information in the show notes. So, everyone listening, please make sure you tag Tamika and
Yes,
share what you learned today and anything that you're going to take action on. And if you did appreciate Tamika being here and sharing all the gems, let her know.
please.
Find her on LinkedIn, DM her. Her DMs are open. I'm just saying that I don't know if it is. And continue this conversation beyond the space. And
Thank
this
you.
has been amazing.
I agree.
And
I know.
thank you so much.
I know. Can't wait.
I can't wait to. So thank you all for joining us on this episode. And please join me on the next one. And let's continue to celebrate Black excellence.